All right, what's going on, everybody? Today we're doing some modifications here at Drew Does Tech. I apologize for the setup. I'm still not 100% ready to go on everything that I want to have going for this. I did want to have a top-down shot for this. I don't have any kind of GoPros or anything that I can rig up for top-down right now. So basically, I'm just trying to get my ring light to sit above my workspace to make it easier to get a top-down angle of what I'm doing. So these tripod legs that are in the shot, I do apologize. There's not much I can do about that right now. Like I said in my previous update video, things are still in progress. The bench is in place. There will be more of that in another update video. It's not stained or set up, but we'll get into that later. Today, what we're doing is we're upgrading 2 Steam Decks. So what I've got here is I've got this Sabrent Rocket Q4 M.2 2230 SSD. It's a 2 terabyte. And what I'm going to do with this today is I have this OLED Steam Deck, which is has a 1 terabyte SSD in it. I'm going to put the 2 terabyte in there. And sorry, I wasn't as prepared for this as I should have been. And then this is a 512 gigabyte LCD Steam Deck. So I'm going to take the 1 terabyte out of here, put it in here, and put this 2 terabyte in the OLED. But we're going to start with the OLED because I have to get that taken care of first and make sure that it's up and running before I can do the other one. Because what I'm going to do, and I should have been a little more prepared for this, is I'm going to take this NVMe cloner and I'm going to clone the 1 terabyte that's currently in my OLED, because this is my OLED. The LCD is my wife's. This is an Acasis NVMe cloner. I got it on Amazon. It's actually not bad. I've already used it once before. This is the same cloner I used to... Actually, I don't need any of that. Well, I do need a power source, but this I don't need. So I used this cloner previously when I upgraded my wife's laptop. She had a 128 gig SSD in the laptop that I replaced with a Samsung 990 1 terabyte. And I just cloned... Oh, there's a button on both sides. I've only used this once before. So I just cloned her drive to the new drive and then installed the new drive and resized the partition and whatnot. So it opens up like this. There's port A, which is for the source drive, and it has different little notches in it for if it's a 2230 all the way up to a 2280, and a little pin here to hold it in place. So Bay A is for the source drive, Bay B is for the target drive, and it's got these little switches here because this cloner isn't just a straight cloner. It also can set up RAID configurations and a few other things. So the important thing is to make sure to pay attention to how these little switches are configured. Right now they are configured where both the switches are pointed toward the numbers, and that's the setup for straight cloning. So that's how we're going to do that part. It's pretty cool. It just needs power. You don't have to hook it up to anything. It can just do it all right there. It was pretty quick copying that 128 gig as well. It only took a few minutes. But yes, I kind of wish Amazon allowed you to reply to reviews so I could help educate people, because I saw a 1-star review for this, and the person left the 1-star review because the cloned drive was the same size, or the partition on the clone drive was the same size as the partition on the target drive, or on the source drive. And so they gave it 1 star for that. But that's not a problem with the product. That's user misunderstanding. Any cloning process you do, cloning by definition is a 1-to-1. So the resulting partition on the new drive, even if it's a large drive, is going to be the same size as the partition that it was cloned from. That's just the nature of cloning. The user is responsible then for going into their disk management software on their desktop and resizing the partition to take advantage of the full size of the new storage. So kind of wish I would have had an opportunity to educate that person on that, but that's neither here nor there. So the first thing I have to do, this is in a custom grip case. It's in a Kill Switch, D-brand Kill Switch grip case. They're not sponsoring me or anything. I just like their stuff. So the first thing I got to do is get this out of the grip case, and then I have to remove the SD card. You must remove the SD card before you do any kind of, make any kind of attempt to open one of these, because you will, whoops, annihilate the SD card otherwise, because the way the slot is configured in the Steam Deck, part of the SD card is exposed and caught inside the grip case, or caught inside the shell, while the rest of it is retained with the rest of it on the body. So it will snap that SD card. You will find yourself in a land of ultimate sadness, as that SD card will die and will no longer be usable. So you must make sure to remove this before you do anything else. Another thing I want to talk about, pro tip for you guys, the natural inclination when working on any kind of hardware is to just turn it over to crack it open. Problem with a console like this is it's got joysticks, so all the pressure is going to be on the joysticks. And if you're opening one of these to modify the joysticks, that's going to be a problem, because when you're removing the screws from the joysticks, you're putting counter pressure on them from the weight of the gravity pulling the deck down and pushing the sticks back through the back. So there's a trick you can do for that, and it's a trick provided by Valve with the official case that the deck ships with. And all you do is you take the deck case. This is the top part. This is the bottom part. But you'll notice here in the top part, it has these little grooves for the thumbsticks, so that when it closes, it'll close over the thumbsticks just fine. So what you do is you take the deck, place it face down in the case. Now you've got it on a flat, even surface that you can work with. No pressure on the sticks. So this is how I'm going to be working with it today. I forgot my gloves. I'll be right back. All right, got gloves. I'm back. So you'll need a couple of different screwdriver bits if you're working on different decks like I am here. Because the LCD deck uses Torx screws. I don't remember if it's an 8 or 9 or something smaller. I'm actually going to start with a 7 here real quick. Nope, that's too big, so we got to go smaller. Is it 6? 6 fits. Okay, so this is a T6 Torx screw bit. The LCD decks, at least the earlier ones, I don't know if they changed them with later ones, but that LCD is from one of the first batches that came out, and they use Phillips screws. These OLEDs use Torx screws, so you will need different bits if you're working on different ones. And then you're going to need some kind of a spudger or pry tool to separate the shell when it's done, or when you go to open it after you've removed the screws. And that should pretty much be it. I've been inside one of these before. Like I said, I previously replaced the thumbsticks. So inside they're pretty modular. One thing that's really cool is they're the same bit throughout the whole machine. So this, I shouldn't have to change this bit while I'm working on this machine. I shouldn't have to change it until I switch to the LCD, which is going to be a different bit. You do want to pay attention to where the screws come from, because they are different sizes, and you want to make sure that you do not put a long screw in a shell shaft, or you're going to have a bad time. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to remove these screws. There we go. And I'm just going to set them in the little grooves behind me here on this static mat. I have a full-size static mat that's going to go on the bench when it's actually fully completed. I still have to, like I said, stain it and fill in some stuff with some wood filler and whatnot. And then it will be fully ready to be used, and then that's when I'll get my anti-static mats set up. I'll get my iMac set up, get all my bench tools set up, and then we'll be ready to go there. I do want to get some kind of a GoPro or something that I can top mount for this kind of stuff. But for now, the ring light will have to work. This guy just feels like he doesn't want to come out. Oh, is this one of the longer ones? No? He's just being difficult. Is this head not magnetized? No, it is magnetized. For whatever reason, though, it just doesn't want to pick these up. Let me just... We got a magnetizer here. I was just going to up the magnetism on it a little bit because it seemed to not really be wanting to grab the screws the way it should. There we go. I'm going to try my best to not get in the way of the shot of this because, like I said before, not the greatest setup right now, but I'm working with what I've got until I get everything in place. I've got more updates from the last time I made a video about where I'm at with certain things related to getting the business up and running, but I'm trying not to talk too much about that right now because I am planning on shooting a separate update video where I'll talk about everything that's been going on since the last one and where we're at with everything. But as I was saying before, I do think these decks are... I'm impressed with how modular these decks are and how repairable these decks are. I really got to give kudos to Valve. They're very pro right to repair, and I appreciate that. Not only is the machine easy to take apart and work on, but all of the parts for it are available on iFixit. So you can literally do any kind of repair to one of these and get all the OEM parts right from iFixit. So we got, I guess these screws aren't different sizes. Maybe it was in the LCD they were different sizes because these are all the same size. Okay, so now all the screws are out. So the next thing we have to do is separate the shells. And some tutorials will tell you to take a pry tool to the side of the grip here to break it open, but I find that's pretty much impossible to do. So what I find works is to start up here by the shoulder buttons and work your way in from here, or maybe from here. No, I think I can get in right. I think that's how I did it last time. Maybe oh, there we go. I was gonna say maybe I used a different pry tool, but there it is. So you can hear the clips popping. So you just want to do that just to get it going. And then once you've got it started, you can just kind of go from there. And so now we want to keep following it around like so. And I think at this point it's pretty much ready to come off. Yep, there we go. So now that's the back plate off. We'll just set that to the side. And this is the inside of the Steam Deck. So these are the track pads. Everything is modular in here. Everything is clearly labeled on the ribbon cables, the backs of these. These are not the OEM sticks, as I mentioned before. I put in Hall Effect sticks. These are Ghillie Kit sticks. So the next thing we have to do in order to get to the SSD and to disconnect the battery, there's a trick you can do to put it in low power mode, but you're not supposed to do that if it's above 80% power, which this one is. So we're going to have to disconnect the battery, and to do that, we have to get under this little shield here. And it looks to me like there's a couple of screws here that are holding it in, and maybe one right here, because that screw is for the thumbstick. So I see these two screws here, and I see one right there. I'm going to assume those are the three holding this shield in place. Do I need to move this ribbon? Don't remember reading anything on iFixit about needing to move this ribbon. So as long as it's not in the way, I'm not going to mess with it. But let's go ahead and take these screws out, because I did look this up on iFixit before starting, just because while I have been inside a Steam Deck before, I've never gone this far. I've only done the sticks, which are both right there and right there. So this is as far as you have to get as far as taking it apart to get to the thumbsticks. So for an SSD upgrade, you have to go a little deeper. And depending on how old your deck is, you might have a different type of heat shield that has a piece of aluminum tape and is more of an aluminum shield versus this seems more synthetic. And you'll want to be careful when you're doing that, because you are going to have to remove that piece of aluminum tape to get to one of the screws on that particular heat shield. But you want to make sure that you retain the usability of that heat shield, of that piece of tape. So it looks like I got everything here, but it doesn't seem to want to come up. Is there something I'm missing? Oh, there's a screw right there I'm missing. There we go. So we'll just put that little guy right there, and now this should just come up. There we go. But it does look like this ribbon is in the way, so I am going to go ahead and just disconnect this ribbon right here. Is this one of them that the tab comes up on, or is this one of them that just kind of slides out? Doesn't seem to want to. That one's the locking tab for that one. Is this the locking tab for this one? Nope, maybe it just comes out. Let me get my tweezers, because I think I might just be able to pull that ribbon out. No. Okay, so this tab, there we go. The locking tab was just being finicky. So we'll just take that out, and then we should just be able to lift this up. Is there something else attached to it? Ooh, hold on. Aha. So it seems that perhaps the iFixit guide I referenced wasn't entirely inclusive of everything that needed to be done to get in here, because there's a cable there I just had to detach to avoid any potential issues right there, in addition to this ribbon cable. So those had to be disconnected, and I don't recall the iFixit guide mentioning that. This is the SSD right here, and this is the battery ribbon. So I want to try and get this disconnected, because I don't want to be doing this with power on the battery. I think I can just grab this. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, so it looks like you can kind of just force this out. Because you always should remove the power source when doing this kind of work, so as to avoid electrocution. Now this is an electrostatic discharge shield around the SSD. When you take this out, you want to make sure that you retain this shield for the replacement SSD. So it should just be this one screw. Which I'm going to put right there. And then this should just come right out. There we go. And then we just want to slip this shield right off to retain it. To retain this for the new SSD that's going in. So this is the SSD that I just removed from here. This is the 1 terabyte that came with the machine. I'm going to put it in this cloner and clone it to this 2 terabyte. So I just got to get a Sharp to open this up. Give me just one moment on that. All right, so I've got the plastic and whatnot wrapped or taken off. This is the little case that was inside the box that's housing the new SSD. So as I said before, we're going to open this guy up. And this is baby. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this little rubber cap out that's currently stationed in the 2280 slot. This is where the target drive goes. So this is where we're going to want to put our new drive. And I'm just going to stick it in here and pin it down. So now it's pinned in place. And I'm going to close this chamber. And then the source drive is going to go on this side. All right, so now this is in. So we'll close this side. Now I need to get it connected to power, and I don't have a nearby outlet here. So I'm going to probably have to do this part off camera. But essentially how it works is you just turn the power on with this button here, and then once it's on, you press this button until you see the 25% light flash. And once it gets all the way up to 100% and the light is solid, the cloning is complete. So I'm going to get this set up. I'll be back when the drive is cloned and we can finish this up. All right, we're back. This is going to have to be spliced together in post, which I don't have my iMac set up yet, but I should be able to do it with the software I do have on my Linux box. And Fedora Linux at least recently got an update to work with the better with the Apple file format, so shouldn't be a problem. Anyway, this took a couple hours, but I mean, it was a 1 terabyte drive. It has, you know, game media and stuff on here, so it was going to take a while, but it's all done. So now what I can do is I can take the new drive out, put it in the Steam Deck, and then put the Steam Deck back together. I don't have my TV upstairs that the dock is connected to set up for capture yet, so I won't be able to capture any of that, but I'll have to go upstairs, put it in the dock, put it into desktop mode, make sure that the partition is resized, all of that good jazz, and then once I can confirm everything is all kosher with the new 2 terabyte drive, I can then clone the 512 gigabyte drive that's in the LCD deck to this 1 terabyte. So let's get this one reinstalled. First thing we got to do is put this shield back on. Oops. Whoops. You'll have to be patient with me. Unfortunately, it's not very easy for me to hold this stuff in a place where you're going to be able to see it. Unfortunately, I just don't have the capability to do that. Maybe I need to slide it back on this way. There, that seems to work much easier. So you'll want to come from the bottom of the SSD with the top part of the shield, which is the part that's etched out to make room for the mounting screw. So you just slide that back on like so. And then we just push this guy back down here. Make sure that shield's good. And then we've got the screw here that came from the SSD mount, or from the NVMe mount. So we're just gonna put that back. And then we're gonna get this guy back together and take it upstairs, boot it into desktop mode, resize the partition, all that good stuff. Oh, I also wanted to mention earlier, I took out this screw when I was removing this, before I realized this screw was one of them that was holding it down. This screw, actually, you do not need to remove it. It's for the heatsink. And we're not going into the heatsink. We're not doing any repasting of the APU. We're not cleaning the fans out or anything like that. So just don't worry about that screw. If you were following along, you can put it back. So now the SSD is back in place. So we just got to get the rest of this put back together. And then we'll go from there. So we do have to reconnect the battery before we put the shield back in place, just because the ribbon is under the shield. So as much as I do not like working with the battery connected, we have to, just by the nature of how this is put together. So now we have to carefully turn this shield around so as to not hurt anything, because there's a little guy there. But this, whoops, kind of got a little too comfortable, a little too quick there. There we go. This guy's got to get put back in. So, okay, I can do that, but I don't think I can do that while it's still connected. So I'm going to just take my tweezers and because I just don't think I can turn it around the way I have to with the cable already connected. So I don't want to do anything that would warp it or mess with it. All right, come on. Come on, little guy. Because it would be very easy to just do it. Actually, I wonder if I can just do it like this, where everything is already kind of in place where it needs to be. So I don't have to like warp it or anything once it's in place. So why don't we try that? Okay. And I just want to take my spudger, oops, and just make sure that it's locked in place and that it's as secure as it's going to be, because we don't want the connection to be loose. But that looks good. It looks like it's as in there as it's going to be. So we'll leave that as is. And we'll go ahead and get this guy back where he needs to be. And, whoops. ahead and get that. Actually, no, that one wasn't. I think that's for a case screw. These were here. There was one here. That guy doesn't seem to want to kind of line up. Maybe it'll line up better once these screws are in place. Because, yeah, that's for a case screw. So no screw goes there. Of the ones we're working with, at least. This one goes here. And this one goes here. So that puts that guy back together. We just gotta put this back in place here. I should actually just be able to do it like this. All right, maybe he wants the tweezers. There we go. And we just lock that back into place there. So this is all good to go here. So we just put the lid back on. Let me just double check. Yeah, because the only thing we had to do was open it up and then remove this. That's right. That's going to be another case screw there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put this back into place here. Okay, now all we got to do is resecure these screws, which are all the same length, so we don't have to worry too much about that. I like to start from the middle and work out. You don't need to put these in too terribly tight. Like, I'm not cranking on these when I'm putting them in. Pretty much once they start to resist, I give them about another half turn. All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put this guy in here. Okay. Got just a few more here. Okay. All right. Two more. All right, so that's all the screws. I wonder if it'll need to be connected to a power source because the battery was disconnected. There we go. So I just held the power button down until it did a reset and the light flashed, and then I waited a couple seconds, hit the button again, and now it's doing a normal power up. Computers tend to act funny the first time you try to power them on after disconnecting the battery, so that's fully expected. I just want to see if we get a picture here. It might take it a minute to get. There we go. So we got the Steam Deck logo. That's good. It's probably doing some kind of initial like boot check, and it's gonna take a little bit longer the first time you boot up after you disconnect the battery, because it has to do certain checks and whatnot. That's my boot video starting, but for some reason the Steam logo doesn't shift away right when the boot video starts. The audio starts, but the logo is still there, and then by the time the logo goes away and the video loads, it's like halfway through the boot video already. All right, so it boots into game mode just fine. Whoops. While we're in game mode, storage. Okay, it says 1.8 terabytes, but I probably still have to resize the partition. But that is a 2 terabyte drive. All right, let's go in. The rest of this I'm going to actually have to do in the dock because I'm going to need a mouse and keyboard to help me get the disk manager up in the desktop mode. I'm not set up for capture yet on my TV and dock upstairs, so I'm going to pause the video for now, take this upstairs and check it. As long as it's good, when I come back, we'll do the LCD using this drive. All right, so I'll see you in a little bit. All right, I'm back. So it was a success. I'm actually pretty impressed because it appears during that initial boot, from what I can theorize, I knew it was going to take longer to boot because computers usually do once you disconnect them from the battery. But I feel like during that initial boot, it must have done some partition management of its own because, as you recall, when I first booted it up in game mode, it did recognize it as a 2 terabyte. It said it had 1.2 terabytes free of 1.8 terabytes. But I just took it upstairs and booted it into desktop mode. And the normal protocol is after you clone a partition, clone a drive to a new drive, you have to manually adjust the partition yourself. But it was already adjusted in the desktop mode. It already had allocated the 1.8 terabytes to the storage partition. So if my theory is correct and the Steam Deck did that itself during boot up, kudos Valve. That's really cool. So I just got to get this one back in its grip case, and then we'll do the LCD, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, so we are back, and we now have the LCD, and we're going to do the same thing we just did with the OLED, but we're going to use the 1 terabyte that came out of the OLED to upgrade this from 512 gigs to a terabyte. As I mentioned before, the OLED uses Torx screws. The LCD, at least the earlier LCDs, which this is one of, uses the Phillips heads. I don't know if the screw type ever changed from early LCD to late LCD. I just know that this uses Phillips head, and I'm using a 00 Phillips bit on my screwdriver here. So same as before, we're just going to take these screws out. Very much so, second verse, same as the first. This one might have a different heat shield than mine. I don't remember when I was in here working on the joysticks if... Ooh, this screw might actually not... This bit might actually not fit that screw. Okay, maybe I'm using a bit of a bigger bit than I should be, but I got a little lucky on it catching those other two because it's not catching this one. All right, so I have two 00 bits. One of them has a little bit more of a, whoops. Okay, yeah, this is what I was talking about before. So the LCD, at least the early ones, have longer screws in certain places than in others. On the OLED, they were all the same size, but this one I just pulled out of the corner here is much longer than the other two I just pulled out. So I'm going to keep these separated. So I was correct in that there are different size screws. It's just that it appears to only be something that applies to the LCD rather than the OLED. So it looks like the four corners have longer screws on the LCD than the four in the middle. My wife was very nervous when I told her I was going to do this again. Not that she's concerned about the deck itself, but she uses her deck a lot more often than I use mine, and we have pets, and so it's exposed to a lot of dander and things. So when I opened it up to install the sticks, it was pretty dirty inside of hers compared to mine. But I told her not to worry about it. And also, it was the first time it had been opened since she's had it. And as I said, this is one of the early batches. So this is a 2022 model LCD. So she's had it for a few years. And it's never been opened before I put the sticks in. So it's naturally going to want, or it's naturally going to accumulate some dirt. Oh, you know what? I almost made a boo-boo. Almost made a boo-boo. Do not want to do that. She would kill me. And I just said at the beginning of the video, make sure you remove that. Well, I'm glad I remembered before I got too far into this, because by the time we got to about here, it'd be lights out for that SD card, because part of it would still be right there, and the other part would be right there. So very important to remember to take that out. And honey, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, but at least I remembered before it was too late. But it goes to show you we're all human. We all make mistakes. Oh, this hasn't gotten too bad since the last time I was in here. But yes, she does have the other heat shield I was talking about earlier when I was doing the OLED. So this one is going to have 4 screws I have to remove. It has the same 3 screws that I removed on the OLED, but then there's another one under this piece of aluminum tape. So I have to be very careful to peel that back with some tweezers and not damage it so that I can reuse it. Okay, so that's far enough back that I can get to the screw, and it's still reusable. I didn't damage it or anything, so good for that. So we just need to pull these 4 screws out. And we'll separate these from the case screws. Okay. these three are a different type of screw than that one there. That one actually looks like it's probably also part of the heat sink, I'm guessing, which is why it's under the shield. All right, so that should be enough to get all of this off. And also, unlike the OLED, this cable runs under the shield rather than over the shield, so I don't have to worry about that getting in the way. So this should just come up, although that ribbon underneath is probably still something I need to be aware of. Okay, why does this not want to come up? Don't think there are any other screws. Oh, there we go. And it doesn't have that little ribbon. The ribbon's right there. So I don't know why that changed between this one and that one, although this shield also has thermal pads, so you need to be wary of that as well. But as I was saying, I don't understand why this ribbon and this ribbon are tethered to the heat shield on the OLED, but not on this one. Nah. Mysteries. So again, we just need to take this one pin or this one screw out of the NVMe mount. We'll set that one right there. And then just like before, we just slide this guy out, and then we want to carefully remove the ESD shield to use on this drive. So this is the 512, and we're going to clone it to this 1 terabyte that I just took out of the OLED. Yeah, it should work. No worries. All right, so I just need to get the cloner, same as before. And we'll start by taking the 1 terabyte and putting it in the target bay. So there it is. And then we will take the 512, put it in the source bay, and then pin that down. All right, so same as before, I just got to connect this to power and let it do its thing. It did take a few hours to do the 1 terabyte, but where this is a 512 gigabyte, it literally should be about half the time. So maybe an hour, hour and a half. I don't know, we'll see. But I'm going to pause the video, get this done. I'll be back when it's ready. All right, so we're back. The 512 actually didn't take nearly as long as the 1 terabyte did to clone. I was estimating about half the time, and the 2 terabyte or the 1 terabyte took closer to, like, I'd say 2 to 3 hours, probably closer to 3. And this cloned in less than an hour, so it's done. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the other one, and we're going to put the new drive in, put it back together, and power it on and see how it goes. If the experience is the same as it was with the OLED, SteamOS will magically resize the partition on its own, which I was not expecting. But I confirmed it in desktop mode. The partition is correct. You saw on camera, game mode was reading the partition correctly. So, yeah, that's the only thing I can think of is SteamOS did it itself, because this certainly did not. I cloned that 128 gigabyte drive for my wife for her laptop, and put that back in her desktop or in her laptop, which also is Linux. It's not, SteamOS Linux, which is a derivative of Arch Linux. It's Linux Mint, which is a derivative of Ubuntu. But yeah, it did not resize the partition. I had to do that manually, as is expected. So again, if my theory is correct and SteamOS did it automatically, kudos to Valve, because that's cool. All right, so the shield is back in place. We're going to reinsert the SSD, the NVMe. And then we just want to put that guy back down. Again, doesn't need to be super tight. Pretty much as soon as it starts to resist, I stop. So now we have a spare 512 that we won't be needing for anything. I'll find a way to wipe that later. This can be used as an enclosure. So if I can get this to read on a computer, or maybe use the USB-C port here to connect it to the deck, maybe I can get it to read as an external on the deck, and I can wipe it from there, because I just need to delete the partition to remove the data from the drive. You always, always, always should remove any data on any old drives that you're planning to discard. Always. Because you never know who's going to get a hold of them, or what their plans are to do with the data. Like, I've got a whole stack of drives over here that I'm going to plug in at some point, and I'm going to see if they have data on them. If they do, I'm going to dump it and get rid of it. But that's because I'm an IT professional, and I know how to properly handle data, and I'm not going to be doing anything with it, but you never know who might be the one dumping that drive. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put this back in place. And this screw was the one that came out from behind the foil tape. All right. Okay, so that one goes back in there. I'm just gonna pull the tape back down and use my spudger to put it back in place. There we go. Okay, so we've got these other three to put back, and then we can reassemble the shell, reinsert the SD card, reboot the machine, and see if we get the same magic we got on the OLED. They're running the same version of SteamOS, so they should. If it is a SteamOS thing, as I'm theorizing, they both should behave the same way. Okay. I almost put the screw in that corner again. I always want to do that, but that's not what it's for. That's where one of the case screws goes. Okay, so that's in place. So now we can put the case back on, and then put the SD card back in, and boot her up and see what happens. Make sure all the clips snap. I think we're good there. All right, so in this case, I normally like to start from the middle, but Yeah, I'll go ahead. I was going to do the long screws first, but I'll go ahead and stick with my usual pattern. And I'll start from the center. All right. All right. That's those two center screws in. Okay, so that's all four of the short center screws. So the next step is going to be the four long corner screws. Then we'll put the SD card back in, boot it up. And not tell my wife a thing. And not share this video with her. I'm just kidding. She already knows. And like I said, everyone goofs up every once in a while, but the important thing is I caught it before it became critical. And besides, had I damaged it, I would have bought her a new SD card because I am an IT professional. If I break it, I will replace it. Okay. So we're all set there. Put our tools away. Okay. Oops. Forgot to put the little reference booklet back in there. Okay. Tools are all packed up. This I will figure out what to do with later. All right. So this is all back together. Let's get the SD card back into the deck. Come on. There we go. And now, all right, I heard the little bloop. All right, we've got the picture. That's new. I did not see that on the OLED, but maybe that's something to do with what I was thinking of with it resizing the partition, because it was saying Discover user area, and Discover is part of the Linux system. User area would be the storage. Let's just check. Same as we did before. Whoops. Or we'll just go to storage. It does read that there's a terabyte. So I think it did resize it. Because it did the same thing on the OLED. I didn't see that little message, but I'll reboot it and see what happens. See if I see that message again. But it's not reading the SD card. Interesting. Why is it not reading the SD card? Yeah, I'm not hallucinating. This is the way it goes in. All right, I'm just gonna. Well, I know when I booted the OLED up the first time, it was acting weird about the SD card. It was showing an SD card, but not that there was anything on it. So I'm going to assume this might be something similar. And all I had to do with the OLED to resolve that, and as you often have to do with electronics, is just reboot it. So let's reboot it. We'll see if it recognizes the SD card. And then I'm going to take it upstairs and confirm that the storage is good. But I won't need to come back to the video if it is. I suppose I could come back and give you the resolution yay or nay, but the results I'm assuming are going to be the same because it already reads it in game mode as it did in the OLED. I guess I'll just come back and be like, yeah, it worked, or no, it didn't. But my theory is it won't need to. Oops. Okay, that's weird. It's reading multiple. Oh, it was pushing on the grip. Okay, so now it's downloading stuff here, which that's what it did on mine after it recognized that there was an SD card. So now it is recognizing her SD card. Okay, so I'm willing to bet that if I go to the KDE manager in desktop mode like I did on mine, that it will confirm that the partition is correct. So I will pause and come back to give the yay or nay on whether or not it is confirmed and give my closing, and then we'll wrap it up from there. There won't be any further need for anything with this. If that worked, you see it working here. So it's good to go. But I will be right back to give the verdict on my confirmation in desktop mode that the partition is correct as it was in the OLED. Okay, and I am back, and it would appear, I guess I don't need to do it this way anymore. I just need to put it back in its grip. But it would appear to me that my theory is correct, because like I said, I didn't see it on the OLED, but on this one, the first time I booted it up, there was a message that said discover user area something something referencing memory addresses. So I truly believe that my theory is correct, and what happens is when the Steam Deck boots back up, it does a system check, a storage check, and it recognizes that there's unallocated space that could be allocated to the user space of the system, and it just adjusts the partition automatically. Because in both decks, the OLED and this one, after installing the upgraded memory, or the upgraded storage, sorry, there was no need for me to partition it, to repartition it manually like you normally would. So that's cool. Kudos to Valve for that. So yeah, that wraps up today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I appreciate it. I am moving into the self-employed space. I completed a certification for A+, which is a IT cert, and I am looking to do this full time. So if you are in the Southern Maine area, I work remotely. I will come to you to do whatever work you need me to do. If you are looking for someone to manage IT for your business, I can do that too. And if you're a private user, a residential user, you have something like this you want me to do for you, if you don't live in the southern Maine area, or even if you live in Maine, but maybe we can't connect, go to my website. I have instructions there for mail-ins. I will take mail-ins and I will service them and I will return them. There's a work order form that needs to be downloaded and filled out and sent with the device so that I know what I'm doing. And there needs to be valid contact information because I'm going to do a consultation with you before I decide if I'm going to take the gig, because I do reserve the right to refuse them if I don't think that it's something that can be done or for whatever reason. So I do need to be able to contact you so that we can do the consultation before I do any work. But yes, I will do mail-ins. I do device repairs, device upgrades, device maintenance. I do custom PC builds, if that's your thing. I do IT work, like I said, for businesses. I can troubleshoot networks for home. But there are some things that are going to come down to your ISP, which I have no control of. But I can also show you how to set up devices, how to use devices. I do obviously encourage tech education, but there will be more about that in another video, because like I said, I'm going to do another update video to give an update from what's happened since the last one. But in the meantime, like I said, please, if you're not already subscribed, please do subscribe. Check out drewdoestech.com. I'm weird, so it's DRU, not DREW. DRU doestech.com. And thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more. Thanks.